Anyone else who would like to speak? Have you felt a, do you have a form?
I do.
That we can't, what, you just have the form, just this.
And then these are copies for the entire commission.
We
and
can't-
the city secretary.
We can't take complaints that way. They have to go through the official channels.
She refuses to forward them as per her job. And that is part
I'm
of
following the procedure that I have to follow, and they have to go through the proper channel.
My name is Courtney Goza. I've submitted several ethics complaints, all of which have been dismissed or rejected outright, despite having a sworn statement, never making it to the committee as required by our ordinance. So I'm passing these out to you tonight because your ECO is not doing her job.
May I approach?
I don't know what that, if that's allowed.
For what?
I won't do the case because of the time. You said it's not a 10-minute case, but you're averaging the total amount of closing, opening. This case is not that simple to do in 10 minutes, so I prefer not to do this case.
We haven't made a
It's not
decision
10
yet.
minutes. You have a 10-minute opening statement. You get to question each witness for 15 minutes. You get to cross-examine their witnesses, which is 15 minutes. So that's potentially, please sit back down. Please sit back down. This is not time for public comment. I'm just telling you about procedural rules.
You're intervening in
I'm
a
not
case that I have
intervening,
to
Miguel.
make.
Do not start with me.
I've already
do
talked
not
to you
start.
about this.
Yeah, we did talk
Councilman
about it.
Zuniga, we haven't even decided on whether or not we're going to accept these rules. Do we have a motion to accept these rules as they are?
I'll make a motion to approve the rules as written.
Do we have a second? If we have no motion and if we have no second, then I believe we need to consider changing the rules. And what would y'all like to see changed? I believe that Mayor Travis Mitchell has a motion in limine.
I've been saying that wrong for the last 5 days. Limine. I did not know
Limine.
that. Yes, I would like to move to submit a motion in limine. All right. So I want to say Councilmember Flores-Kell because that's what I'm used to calling you. When did you get elected? What's your timeline? When did you become council member and when did you leave?
I was elected in November of 2020, and the end of my term was November 2023.
Okay, and you said when did you get on the CAD and determine where these listings were and who brokered for who?
So that was later on. So I received the information in 2021, 2022, and then in 2023 is when I did my research.
While you were serving on the council?
It was right around election time, so I would say yes.
So if you believed that something was wrong, why did you not file a complaint until here 2 years later?
Because the first
participate in this?
complaint that I filed was dismissed. And I don't believe it got proper
So
credit.
is it your testimony that you filed a complaint about what you just testified to?
Actually, I did. I filed a complaint with the FBI.
You filed a complaint with the FBI?
Yes, sir, I did.
But not the Ethics Commission?
No, at that point, I'd already, as you know, I drafted 2 or 3 complaints, and all of them went on deaf ears.
Okay. Did you have any conversation with the city manager about your concerns?
I did.
Okay.
Well, which one?
About the representation issue. I think
Correct.
you've only represented one situation here. So you did have a conversation with him? And
With-
what was his response?
Who's him?
The city manager,
City manager who?
Langley.
Yes, I had a conversation with Bryan Langley.
And what was his response?
He brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
Yes, that would be hearsay. Objection for hearsay.
Okay. He's a witness. We'll ask him. I apologize.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to do that. I was trying to ask what happened. All right. I have no further questions.
Chris Torrey, the realtor for the city when you were on council?
Correct. He was prior to being voted on. He represented the city without my knowledge. And then after I obtained that information, I actually voted against retaining him.
Okay. Is he a commercial broker?
That was part of the reason why I did not vote for him, is because he was not a commercial. At that point, the research that I conducted showed that he sold mostly homes.
Okay. Just one sec. And were you privy to the contracts with regard to the properties that the city was going to buy? I mean, did you see the price and that business?
No, no. So historically, what the council would do, and what I eventually caught on, was they would give the city manager full power to negotiate and close all sales, which is why I'd never seen a closing sale or the documents until after I requested them, and that was after, I think it was Papa Jack's, which is the second one that the city bought.
And do you know if those properties were appraised?
The whole time I was on council, there were never any appraisals.
But there are properties bought by the city? without
Yes.
Appraisals? Okay, I think that's all.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you know what the charter rules are as far as getting a contract with a real estate agent?
There are no rules in the charter, but I know for like special circumstances allow for the city to vote and obtain a vendor without going through the RFQ or RFP process. But in order to retain, the council does need to vote.
Okay.
Meeting
The
with
question
you.
is, did I send you an email and you responded that the correct process was not followed?
I think, yes, that's correct.
And then, second question, we had a meeting and you said to me, another council member was also bothered. So the question is, why didn't you call a special meeting for that? To discuss a concern about the right process not being followed?
Well, I think the question that you and I had discussed was whether or not the mayor should have brought that to me for me to investigate the real estate transaction. I agreed that it would be the easiest process for any council member to come to me directly so I could negotiate those issues or look at them. That's something I tell all of you. But there was no violation. There was no request from any member to have any special meeting. It was an offhand comment.
All right, we'll reset the clock and let.
All right, Mr. Langley, few things. Number one, there was a comment that was made by the previous witness from Mr. Zuniga, Ms. Flores-Cale, who talked about whether you were represented by Mr. Torrey personally. That's an item that you looked into at the time that happened, and you sought advice. Is that correct?
That's correct. In the July 2023 timeframe, I contacted the city attorney, Page Signs at the time, with the Knott Law Firm, and asked for an opinion on whether or not there was a conflict of interest that I had, since Mr. Torrey had represented me on the purchase of my home, and asked if there was any conflict or any disclosure that was required. I was advised by her that none existed, no conflict or any disclosure was required. There was no conflict of interest.
Can you point to any statement by a council member, they've all testified, that they felt pressured or influenced by me regarding these properties because of my influence?
There was a council member who repeated what you said. So you influenced what their decision.
Which one? Can you elaborate?
Praising and endorsing the realtor.
Praising and endorsing the realtor. Let me ask the question again. Can you point to any statement by a council member that they felt pressured or influenced by me regarding these properties? What was their testimony? regarding pressure, coercion, and the like.
They follow your leadership is all I can say.
Can you point to any document where I instructed the city manager to assign these properties to a specific realtor?
I look at your sworn statement, and you made contact with the realtor, and you asked the realtor to contact the city manager. That would be the point of contact.
That is 100% what happened. I didn't make contact. You keep saying that. You
Your
can
sworn
say it a lot.
statement says that.
You know, you haven't read it yet. Sorry.
Yeah. Wouldn't that seem like you were engaging him to do that work for the city? I mean, like it was tantamount to you asking Torrey to make inquiries for the city.
Well, so there's context to you have to understand how Mr. Torrey operates, which is why he gets the endorsements that he gets from me. Mr. Torrey is an entrepreneur at heart. It's part of why we get along. But in terms of the way that he has approached some of the city's philosophies about acquiring properties, he's done it with a lot of zeal. And so we have conversations, and he peppers me with questions. So, and I routinely, what you don't know is how many properties he comes to me and says, what do you think about this one? What do you think about that one? And I just don't. But that one in particular had come up in Facebook, and there had been dirt turning on it. And I had been texted by Steve Cook, and which is in the disclosures, and so it was just kind of a buzz, and I think it's because people had torn down a piece of it, and it got everyone sort of interested. And so I'm pretty sure, but I cannot say for a fact, that he brought it up to me in the context of this conversation. Who brought it up, I do not know, but I didn't contact him directly. It was sort of a natural conversation where he's very inquisitive. He's trying to look for opportunities to see if he can put something together here and elsewhere. And it's just how he is as a private business person. And my response to him was, I don't even know if the property is for sale. I didn't think that it was. In fact, I told Mr. Cook the same thing when I went over and talked to him. I was like, because I've always thought about those properties, but I didn't even think that it was for sale. And I said, you just did the property on 107 Veterans, which is right next door. And if you can find who the owners is and talk to them, take it to the city manager. And from my perspective, that was making sure that I was not involved in the process at all. I was very careful. The whole narrative about me, other people not knowing that I had contact was deliberate. We had a 30-second conversation about it, and my response to him was, talk to the city manager, and I already know that everybody's got stuff going, a lot of people don't like the real estate stuff that's going on with the city. So my response was to just completely stay out of it all the way until when in executive session towards the end, when they had selected those, there was 5 or 6 properties. They had selected, the council had said, we like this one over here, and we like those properties on Veterans. And Mr. Zuniga rightly wanted to know, well, what about representation? And at that point, Mr. Langley recommended the national firm for the Veterans properties, and he recommended Chris Torrey for the other property. And it shocked me because I couldn't understand why that would happen, because I had a conversation with Chris, and I knew that he had been the one to suss out and find the owners and negotiate all that and talk to him. And I knew that he also didn't mention anything about this other property. So while I advocated for Chris Torrey to get be allowed to stay involved in 103, 105, I simultaneously advocated against him being gifted representation of another property that he had nothing to do with. For me, it was, and I think one of the council members mentioned it as well, once it had been stated, the reason it was compelling is because the argument is a compelling argument. Realtors, if you're in the real estate world, One of the worst things that can happen is for you to come up with and find an owner and figure all those things out and then have someone take it from you. I did not think that was right, and so I spoke up at great risk because I knew that I didn't know this was going to happen, but I knew that me speaking and advocating for Chris would be bad. I just felt like I had to do it. I felt like it was the right thing.
I get what you're saying, but it appears from your statement that you were talking to him and you brought it up. He didn't bring it up from your statement. That's what it appears to be. And so, to me, that would be asking him for his,
Well, I wrote the statement carefully because I don't remember who brought it up. It was a fluid conversation from times before. I don't remember. I did not say that in my statement, and that is not my testimony that I brought it up to him. It was a more fluid discussion. I don't remember. We were conversing about a variety of things, which we do. I enjoy talking to him about those kind of projects.
So why didn't you just direct him to Langley to start with, instead of saying, oh, check with the owners? I mean, do you know what I mean? I mean, because it's sounding a little convoluted and a little.
Well, I told him I didn't even know if the property was for sale.
Right.
I guess potentially in my mind, I have those conversations all day, every day with people in a variety of ways and encourage them. But I'm not speaking for the city. I'm not speaking on behalf of the city.
Who are you speaking for?
Myself as the mayor, individually, with 1 vote out of 7. I have conversations with lots of people.
I get that you do, but it seems like when you're speaking as the mayor, you're speaking as a city. I don't think you can divide it out.
I understand that some people think that, but when you talk to my colleagues in particular, they will remind you that I have the exact same amount of influence in terms of actual verifiable influence in terms of the outcomes as they do. And council members, perform very similar types of advocacy, bringing things forward, and honestly, greater advocacy on behalf of various groups or organizations that they don't do anything like what I did, which is to stay completely away from it as much as possible. I did show him a path. I didn't know if it was even for sale. I didn't know if council would want it, but I did think that it would be an interesting conversation. And it was brought up with 6 other properties, and the council selected 2, and I had no idea which ones they would select. The narrative that I was somehow masterminding, it's flattering, some property purchase and all these things that have this sort of like spider web over the council. I mean, you heard from the council. That is not how I engage with them. The reason we get along, if I was that way, they would hate me. We don't behave that way. And in particular, when it comes to the ethics rules, I know what they are. Which is why I'm constantly going to attorneys for opinions, because what I don't want to do is operate out of fear, because I know someone will criticize me. But what I do want to, so I don't want to operate out of fear, but I also don't want to break any rules. And it takes, if I knew I didn't break a rule. From the beginning, this conversation, the ethics attorney's analysis is correct. It is the correct analysis. But that's my answer on that. I appreciate the question.